Now, as some of you know, I used to do these videos called discussion videos where I basically presented a topic, gave my thoughts on it, and then opened it up to all of you to give your thoughts on it as well, and then made a follow-up video the next week where I delved into what you all had to say. And the last one of those I made the weekend before The Last Jedi came out, where I asked who did Star Wars better, George Lucas or Disney? And I had plans to see how people felt about this question both before and after they'd seen the movie. And as you also may know, I never did actually make a follow-up video to that question, despite having numerous people weigh in on the topic, though one could say the last 3 months or so of the videos I've been doing have indirectly been addressing that question, as I ceaselessly talked about The Last Jedi and the divide it caused within the fanbase, and how many people blame Disney and the direction they're taking Star Wars in for it. And as I said in yesterday's video, I'm pretty much moving on from the topic of The Last Jedi, and I say pretty much because I will be talking about it just a little bit here, because I plan on responding to a couple of those comments that I got in yesterday's video, as well as some comments I did on a video earlier this week. And that's really what I have planned for this whole series, which I'm calling Let's Talk Some Star Wars, because well, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to talk Star Wars with all of you. And my goal going forward with this channel is to try to get back to my roots and my initial intent with this channel, and that's to make it as interactive as possible and a place for everyone and anyone who wants to talk Star Wars to do just that. So I'm really open to ideas from all of you on just what this should be. Do you like my original idea where I make a video with one topic, let you all have your say, and then do a follow-up? Or this new idea that I'm going to try here where I'll just be responding to comments I got on all my other videos? Or do you have another idea for what this could be or what this should be that you think will work better? Whatever the case is, let me know in the comments below after the video, please. Okay, getting to it. The first comment I want to address, or maybe I should say comments because a lot of people brought this up, was from my video about Rian Johnson explaining his decisions with The Last Jedi. And I said that I found it odd that Luke would come to the conclusion the Jedi need to end when Obi-Wan had once told him that the Jedi had essentially been the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic for 1,000 generations, which equates to about 25,000 years when you figure a generation is usually considered to be about 25 years long. Anyway, many people pointed out that that doesn't mean there was 25,000 years of peace, that there were no doubt still wars and other horrible things that happened under the Jedi's watch. But the point is, the Jedi were there to deal with them, and the fact that they endured for 1,000 generations says a lot about their success rate, if you will. I tend to liken it to your local police department. Just because they exist doesn't mean no one is ever going to commit a crime, but it's nice to have them around in case someone does. Not to mention, their mere existence deters a lot of would-be criminals. The Sith were in hiding for 1,000 years, plotting and planning a way to take over the galaxy, and if not for the failing of Anakin Skywalker at the bitter end, they would have been stopped and the Jedi would have endured again. My point is, and a much longer video and discussion could be had on this topic, the Jedi may have ultimately failed in the end and lost their way, but throwing out the whole system after thousands of years of success seems like an odd conclusion for Luke to come to. Now granted, maybe he wasn't being 100% rational when he came to it, but to go back to my first analogy, if you found out your local police department was perhaps corrupted and failing in some capacity, and let criminals take over your town for a couple days, and keep in mind the Sith only ruled for 25 years, would you then come to the conclusion, after order had been restored of course, that there should never again be police because they had failed once? Or would you instead re-examine the system and try to do better next time? And yes, Luke did eventually try to rebuild the Jedi Order, but was foiled by Snoke when he corrupted Ben Solo. But the irony here is that Snoke was corrupting Ben even before Luke decided to rebuild the Jedi Order, which means it wasn't Luke's decision to start the Order again that led to disaster, though I think an argument could be made that maybe his indecision to start it may have played a factor. Either way, I'm not sure how Luke thinks nothing bad will ever happen again if the Jedi are gone. It's like saying if there are no police, criminals will cease to be too. Okay, now moving on to our first actual comment, and I'm going to do like I did with the discussion videos and highlight the top rated comment for, well, each video in the week. And I'm going to start with the video called Brilliant or Senseless, where I again discussed Rian Johnson's explanation of The Last Jedi, and it comes to us from my good friend Gregory B, who said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing," which is a quote from Edmund Burke. And he goes on to say, that's the problem with Rian Johnson's thinking here. And I think this is spot on and goes along with what I was just saying. Inaction, or a lack of the Jedi in the galaxy, is only going to allow the Sith to eventually rise again, but this time, there will be no Jedi to challenge or stop them. It just seems very ignorant for Luke, and again, I get he's a broken man in this movie, but it seems ignorant for him to truly believe that dying alone on that island and letting the Jedi end with him is going to solve anything long term. And yes, I do get that part of the point of this movie is that Luke realizes he was wrong, but we have so very little context around how he came to that decision in the first place, and are left to believe his almost killing his nephew was the catalyst for his entire downfall. Okay, our next comment from the same video comes to us from Sven Sandstrom, who said, "Honestly, I think the flaws in Ryan's direction of The Last Jedi go beyond him. I believe decisions were based on pragmatic writing in regards to pandering to certain fan groups, as well as a need to totally change the underlying story as told by George Lucas." Now, I usually tend to steer clear of talking about what agendas may or may not be in The Last Jedi or in all things Star Wars these days, because I really do try to just focus on Star Wars itself and not what goes on around it, if you will. But let me say this, and it's not exactly a direct response to Sven's comments here, but more of a response to the more general issue at hand. Despite what Disney and Lucasfilm claim, I do wonder how much actual freedom these writers and directors are given, and what things they are told have to be in the movies. And this is not me trying to defend Rian Johnson and saying I think Disney is the reason why, in the view of some, he didn't make a great movie. I'm just saying it's a sad but true fact that corporations of any kind, Disney or otherwise, think they have the right to tell people how they should live and think. And I don't want to get too deep into this topic, because believe me, I could probably talk about this for hours, and again, I usually just keep it to Star Wars. But it saddens me on some level to think that we live in a world where a movie can't just be a movie, but has to try and teach us about diversity and acceptance, when these are things we should have learned elsewhere long ago. I mean, if it takes a movie to convince a young girl she can be just as good as a boy at something, then it should be clear we have some serious issues elsewhere in our society that no movie is going to fix. Moving on then. Our next comment, and this one got heavily discussed by many people, and it was one of the longest threads I've ever seen in my comments, so I figured I'd touch on it here, came to us from Master Search, who talks about how an outline or story treatment J.J. Abrams made for Episode 8 got completely thrown out by Rian Johnson. And though the Master didn't bring it up here, we even learned from Mark Hamill that the end of Episode 7 got changed at the request of Rian Johnson. That originally when Rey found Luke, he was supposed to be meditating with rocks floating around him, indicating he was obviously very much still using the Force. And as I said, this got heavily discussed in the comments and has been heavily discussed elsewhere, and the simple truth behind it is this: we really don't know just how much cooperation or on the same page these two guys really were. Johnson and Abrams, I mean. They may have been best friends and agreed on everything, but I think it's clear that Johnson still took the story in a direction that Abrams did not originally intend, and there is a lot of evidence to suggest this. However, how much that may or may not have irritated Abrams is another question entirely. And you could of course bring up the fact that publicly, Abrams has expressed his unconditional support for Johnson and the movie, even saying he loved the script so much he wished he could have done the movie himself. Then again, what else would Abrams say? That he hated the script and resented Johnson for taking the story in a different direction? That'd be a really quick and easy way to piss off Disney, the biggest name in the industry right now. And I'm not saying that's proof that he lied or stretched the truth. I'm just reminding people he'd have a lot to lose by criticizing Johnson or The Last Jedi. And the fact that he is doing Episode 9 now is proof he's playing ball with Disney. Another thing people like to bring up is that J.J. Abrams was an executive producer on The Last Jedi, which must mean he had a say and approved of everything, right? But the problem with that is there were multiple producers on The Last Jedi, and among them was Kathleen Kennedy, who obviously gets the final say in everything. So how much power or say Abrams actually had is in question. Also keep in mind, Stan Lee gets credited as an executive producer on all Marvel movies, and though I love the guy and mean no disrespect to a true legend, I highly doubt his involvement in those movies extends beyond his cameos in each of them. Moving on now to yesterday's video, the one titled Fan Wars, where I discussed the divide in the fan base. Well, our top rated comment there came to us from Word, who said this: Some people think the worst thing that can be done to a man is to take everything from him. But if you really want to hurt a man, take away something he loves and give it back broken. And I really don't have much to say about that, other than I think this sums up exactly how a lot of people feel about Disney and Star Wars, and leave it at that. The next comment then comes to us from Force Within TV, who has a great Star Wars channel himself that you should check out sometime. And he simply says, "Please move on," in reference to my constant Last Jedi videos. And yes, that is the game plan. For better or worse, I have spoken my piece concerning The Last Jedi. And though many think all I was doing is bashing it, what I was really trying to do is just have a good, rational discussion about this movie that just so happened to last a little over 3 months. And in my defense, it was, and still is, probably the biggest topic in the Star Wars fandom. And I wasn't just going to ignore that fact. I was going to, and did, give you my honest thoughts and opinions. And I very much appreciate the people who completely disagreed with me and stuck around and even laid out your own well thought out and rational arguments in response to my videos. We may not agree, and that's fine because I think talking Star Wars would get boring really fast if all we did was agree on absolutely everything all the time. But I think we can all agree we love this franchise and want what's best for it. Anyway, this video was kind of a trial run, so I'm going to end it here and ask for your opinions. Would you like me to do more of this and maybe make these videos even longer so I can discuss more comments and answer more questions? Did you like the old format for the discussion videos better, where I brought up a topic and then followed it up with a video the next week with your thoughts and opinions? Or should I maybe merge the two and bring up topics to discuss and still bring up comments from other videos? Or should I maybe try something else entirely? Let me know one way or the other, because I really do want to make this channel more interactive again, and less me rambling about The Last Jedi. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to, of course, tell me what you think about the format of this video, and what else you might like to see from me in the future. So leave a comment below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.